$426 billion. That's how much money Elon Musk has. Now guess who has received $310 billion? It's not a business person or a company, it's a country. That country is Israel. The US has given Israel this huge amount of money since the mid-1900s. If Israel were a person, it would be the second richest in the world. But why does the US do this? In today's video, we will talk about why the United States gives so much support to Israel. The amount is over $310 billion. Most of it is military help, and much of it comes with no conditions. Is it because of shared beliefs, past history, or is it something more political? We'll explore the history of this special relationship, from the early years after World War II to today's politics. We'll look at feelings, strategy, and money, and why, even when the world criticizes Israel, the US still supports them strongly. Switching to history mode. How it all started. In 1948, Israel became a country. Just 11 minutes later, the US said they officially recognized Israel. That quick move was the start of a strong friendship, but the beginning wasn't always smooth. President Harry Truman was the first to support Israel, but he was careful. Between 1949 and 1965, the US gave only $63 million in economic help. Why? After World War II, America wanted to be friends with all Middle Eastern countries. If the US only helped Israel, then Arab countries might turn to the Soviet Union. So America tried to stay neutral and work through the United Nations. During this early period, Israel was still a very young and unstable country, facing enemies on almost every border. The US was watching carefully, not wanting to upset Arab allies like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, or Iraq. Instead of military aid, America focused on food, medicine, and basic supplies. It wasn't about weapons yet. It was about survival. Also, at the time, America was still figuring out how to lead globally after World War II. The Cold War was beginning. Every small decision could have big consequences. Truman's early support for Israel was bold but limited. He had to think both emotionally and strategically. Even so, that 11-minute recognition sent a big message. It showed the world that the US was willing to take a stand, and that small gesture would become the seed of a deep and lasting alliance. Let's move forward to the Cold War. The big change, Cold War time. As we move into the 1950s, the global situation was changing fast. The Cold War was heating up, and countries around the world were picking sides, either with the US or with the Soviet Union. Israel was still trying to find its place in this global power struggle. In 1956, Israel joined Britain and France in attacking Egypt after Egypt took control of the Suez Canal. This move shocked the US. The American government didn't want another war and didn't approve of this surprise attack. They pushed all three countries to pull back. This showed that even though the US supported Israel, it would still draw the line when actions threatened broader peace. However, in the 1960s, things took another turn. Arab countries were becoming closer with the Soviet Union, receiving weapons and training. The US was losing influence in the region. Then came a huge moment. The Six-Day War in 1967. Israel fought 5 Arab nations and won in just 6 days. The world was stunned. These 5 countries had been heavily supported by Moscow. The US suddenly saw Israel in a new light. Israel was not just a tiny new country. It was a strong and reliable force in a dangerous region. After that, American military aid to Israel skyrocketed. In just 1 year, from 1970 to 1971, aid jumped from $35 million to $545 million. Israel had proven it could stand up to Soviet-backed forces. From that point forward, the US-Israel partnership became much more serious and much more expensive. Now, let's explore emotions and politics. Emotions and US politics. The relationship between the US and Israel isn't just about military power or strategy, it's also deeply emotional. One of the strongest emotional ties comes from the Holocaust. During World War II, over 6 million Jews were killed. Many Americans, especially after learning about the horrors of concentration camps, felt deep guilt that the U.S. hadn't done more to help. This historical regret helped build strong sympathy for the Jewish people and their need for a safe homeland. After the war, the idea of supporting Israel was seen by many as a way to make things right. It wasn't just a political decision, it was a moral one. American politicians started to believe they had a duty to protect Israel and the Jewish people from future harm. Also, Jewish Americans, though only a small part of the population, are very active in politics. They often vote in key states that can decide elections. Many are involved in media, business, education, and government. Their voices carry weight. Back in 1948, President Truman had a close Jewish friend named Eddie Jacobson. Jacobson helped convince him to support the creation of Israel. Truman's quick recognition of Israel just 11 minutes after its founding was partly because of that personal connection. This move wasn't just moral, it was also smart politics. Truman won re-election that year, and his support of Israel became part of his legacy. Since then, many politicians have followed a similar path, combining personal values with political strategy. Supporting Israel became both the right thing to do and the politically smart thing to do. This emotional and political bond helped form the base of what would become one of the strongest international relationships in the modern world. Next, we talk money and lobbying. AIPAC, the lobby group. AIPAC stands for the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It's one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the United States. Its main goal is to make sure American leaders and lawmakers continue to support Israel, no matter which political party is in charge. AIPAC works by building relationships with members of Congress and providing financial support to election campaigns. They give money to both Republicans and Democrats. In 2024, AIPAC raised $43.5 million. They gave over $20 million to Democratic candidates and $13 million to Republicans. More than 500 individuals and groups received their support. But AIPAC doesn't just hand out money. They educate lawmakers, organize trips to Israel, and offer talking points to help politicians defend pro-Israel policies. This strong presence means that very few members of Congress want to oppose AIPAC's goals. It could cost them votes or donations. One major example of AIPAC's influence is the Taylor Force Act of 2018. This law cut U.S. aid to the Palestinian Authority until it stopped giving money to families of people who carried out attacks against Israelis. Many experts believe this law was heavily pushed by AIPAC. Some critics argue that AIPAC doesn't just influence policy, it shapes it. They say AIPAC has too much power and that American foreign policy becomes more about protecting Israel than serving U.S. interests. Still, AIPAC remains legal and active, and it continues to play a major role in shaping how America deals with the Middle East. Switching to strategy now. Why Israel matters to U.S. plans. Beyond history and politics, Israel plays a central role in America's overall strategy in the Middle East. One of the key ideas in U.S. foreign policy is making sure Israel's military is always stronger than all its neighboring countries combined. This is called qualitative military edge, and it's something the U.S. government guarantees. The reason for this is simple. A strong Israel makes the region more stable, from the U.S. perspective. If Israel can defend itself easily, other countries are less likely to attack it or start conflicts. And since the Middle East is a major source of the world's oil, stability there is important for the global economy. And for America's own energy interests. Let's look at a few examples. In 1970, a Soviet-backed group tried to take control of Jordan. The U.S. didn't want to send American soldiers, so it asked Israel to take the lead. Israel moved quickly, and the plan to overthrow Jordan's king failed. It was a clear win for America without putting its own troops at risk. In 1973, the Yom Kippur War broke out. Egypt and Syria, backed by the Soviet Union, launched a surprise attack on Israel. The U.S. responded with a major airlift of weapons and supplies. Israel survived and eventually pushed back. The message was clear. Israel was strong, and America had its back. After that war, something interesting happened. Egypt, once an enemy of Israel, started talking peace. Why? Because they knew that without U.S. support, they could never beat Israel. In 1979, with America as the middleman, Egypt and Israel signed a peace deal. Egypt even got back the Sinai Peninsula, land it lost during war. Since then, Egypt has become the second largest receiver of U.S. aid after Israel. So in many ways, helping Israel gave the U.S. two allies for the price of one, and more control over peace talks in the region. For the U.S., Israel acts like a power partner in a region full of uncertainty. Whether it's Iran's nuclear program, terror groups like Hamas, or just keeping oil routes open, having Israel as a military and intelligence ally gives America a huge advantage without needing to fight wars on its own. That's why Israel matters, not just for moral or emotional reasons, but for hard, strategic ones too. And now to the modern day, the tough questions, when the friendship is questioned. Even the strongest friendships get tested, and the relationship between the U.S. and Israel is no exception. Since October 2023, the world has been watching Israel closely because of its military actions in Gaza. These attacks have caused massive destruction and a humanitarian crisis. Israel has been accused by some countries and human rights groups of committing war crimes or even genocide. At the same time, the U.S. continues to send military aid and political support. This has sparked protests not just around the world, but also inside the United States. Many Americans, especially young people and progressive groups, are questioning why their government still supports Israel no matter what. President Biden finds himself in a tough spot. On one hand, the U.S. has always said its support for Israel is ironclad, meaning unbreakable. On the other hand, he faces growing international pressure to stop the flow of weapons and push Israel toward peace. In January 2025, the U.S. helped broker a temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. This gave some relief to people in Gaza and reduced tensions for a while. But it didn't change the bigger picture. U.S. weapons and financial aid to Israel are still flowing. The situation raises big questions. Can the U.S. be a peacemaker if it's also arming one side? Can American leaders keep supporting Israel unconditionally when public opinion is shifting? Some lawmakers are starting to speak out, but so far, U.S. policy has stayed the same. The truth is, changing this policy would take a major shift in how both American leaders and voters see the region. The emotional, strategic, and political connections are so deep that it's hard to imagine a future where the U.S. doesn't support Israel. So even as criticism grows, the U.S. keeps walking the same path, trying to calm tensions without cutting ties. It's a balancing act, and one that shows how complicated international relationships can be. Wrapping it all up. Conclusion. What's next? The U.S.-Israel alliance is built on emotion, history, politics, and strategy. It's not just about kindness. It's about shared goals and shared power. Will America stop helping Israel? Probably not, because in global politics, loyalty like this costs a lot, and the U.S. seems willing to keep paying. If you learned something today, please like, share, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what topic you want next. See you in the next video.